Hey there. I've had a couple of requests to show a couple of things on how I implement the Boss ES8 with Eventide H9s. The first part of this video is kind of a recreation of one I did about a week ago, but I only had my cell phone camera available at the time, so I wanted to redo the part on how I use one of the H9s as a tuner. So real quick, we'll cover that quickly. I have two H9s in my setup. This one is a Max, and this one is a core unit. You might see the name, and so I'll just mention it here. You can rename the H9s because they normally have just a serial number, and they're kind of random. So for me, it was easier to give them an actual name. This one was a Max, so I just called it Max. And there's actually a restaurant near where I live it's a chain called Max and Irma's. So it just seemed kind of funny to call my core unit an Irma. So the Irma unit is the one that I use for my tuner. It really could be either one, but I'll show you in the next video. I use this one for my tap tempo source, so that's part of the reason I want to use this. So in my H9 control app, you want to go down to the pedal. Select the H. If you only have one H9, it's simpler, but I have two, so I go to the Irma H9, and I need to go to the MIDI settings. Now it's important that every MIDI device that you are using with the ES8, it has to have its own MIDI channel. If you try and put everything on the same channel or put two things on the same channel, you're not going to get the results that you're after. So my amplifier is MIDI controlled channel switching, so it is channel 1, this is channel 2, and this is channel 3. So you'll see in here I have that channel 3, and at this point all I'm really worried about here is assigning MIDI CC messages. And you see down here towards about 3/4 of the way down, there's an area for toggle tuner. Now you can choose any MIDI CC number that you want, as long as you're not using it for something else. So if you have a device elsewhere on your board that uses CC messages, I would make sure that you stay away from those, just so that if you accidentally have the channels messed up or something, you don't trigger something you don't want. So since I could pick anything, 440 is a standard tuning, so MIDI CC 44 kind of made sense to me. So that's really all we need to do on the H9 to have it ready to go. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is program the ES8 itself. And so I'm starting here with a bass patch as it comes from Boss. You see if I push the mute button right now, sorry, my manual. If I push the mute button right now, this light comes on, but there's nothing happening up there because we haven't done anything yet. So and I guess it's important to say we are programming a patch. This is not a global thing that you're doing on the ES8. Does it really matter? Not really. You just need to understand that you really only have to do this once, but this is something I would try and do while I'm setting up my ES8 to be part of the base thing that I do for all of my patches. So basically I made a patch with this, I copied it to each of my patches in a bank, and then I just copy those banks all over, and it covers pretty much everything. That being said, most of the time I'm tuning in my clean patch, which really is almost straight into the amp. I usually have just a little bit of reverb on here, and that's all that there is, because since sometimes, actually usually I have a delay going before my reverb, you don't want the delay going into your tuner. The other thing is if you have a volume pedal programmed in. If the volume pedal's down and that is programmed into your loops, it's not going to send any signal, so that has to be up. And I found that out myself by why is this not working. I know I programmed it in there. So again, all of this is just really understanding how the ES8 works, and like any computerized device, I'm a pilot, and in my profession we say that computers are dumb and dutiful. They will do exactly what you programmed them to do and nothing else. So the ES8 certainly fits that category. It's going to do exactly what you program it to do. So anyway, let's get to programming this. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to reprogram what this button does. So I go to Edit, Patch, And actually before that, why don't we go ahead and turn this loop on. If this isn't receiving a signal by having its loop on, it isn't going to be able to receive anything to tune. So that loop has to be active. So in my case, that is loop number 7. So I'm going to turn loop number 7 on. All right, we're done with that. Now the next thing that we need to do is change what that button does. So the way that we do that is go to Control Expression, and it's basically going to go through all of the buttons that are on here if you scroll through. And the one that makes the most sense to me to use is the mute button. So I go to mute, and you'll see right now the function is mute. Now the only options are either off or all of these that are labeled. So in our case, and this was really confusing to me the first time that I figured this out, so we need to turn this to off right now. So it is. So now that's done. And then we need to next go back to our control expression, and we're going to go to assigns. And I don't know if you saw, I was holding down the right button. It's pretty far to the right in the menu. So we're going to go to assign 1, and what we want is the switch on, the source mute. I was just experimenting to see if I could actually hit it there. It does need to be momentary. The category is MIDI. The channel, I believe I mentioned before, but my amp is channel 1. This is channel 2, and this is channel 3. So in my case, I want to go to channel 3. And the CC that I picked was 44. So I'm going to scroll down to 44. And this arrow tells me that there's still more stuff over here. And those things are fine. So I exit out of there. And now when I hit this button, you should see that change to the tuner. And sure enough, it does. Now, there are a couple of things, and I'm going to write this while I'm thinking about it, just so that if I go away from that, I don't lose it. There are a couple of other MIDI messages that are in the standard Boss ES8 patch. You've probably read about that elsewhere, but since this is something you're probably making for your bass patches, this is where I would take these out. So if you go again to Edit and go to so Patch MIDI 1, it's for some odd reason pre-populated with these MIDI CCs. You may have also read this too, but it took me a while to figure this out. When I'm holding this button down, it goes fairly fast, but the way to make it go faster is to hold the button down for the direction you need to go, and once it starts moving, hit the button that's in the opposite direction where you're holding it, and it'll go really fast. So this is what that looks like. And when you're doing names and going through the alphabet and characters and all that stuff, that can be very useful for that. That arrow tells me there's another one over there, so I get those back to 0 as well. And those are the ones that you really want to get out of there. So now that that's all done, I'll write that again. And let me lean over to my guitar here so I can show you that it does work. So I hit mute. See the tuner activate. And there it is. It works. So that's how to use the Boss. Oh, and I should have mentioned as well, you have to hit it once to go in and once to get out. A few people had an issue where they couldn't seem to get out of the tuner, and what it was they had forgot to make sure that the switch was momentary. So basically this was set as a latching switch. So if you think of this as like a regular stomp box switch, if it's latching, you hit it and it latches on, you hit it again and it should be turning off. But in our case, we're just sending a message. We're not needing a latching switch, so that's why it has to be momentary. Alright, the next part of the video that I'll do will be some other, actually for MIDI clock.